You think being understood is a virtue. It is the leash they tied around your neck while you smiled. Every time you opened your mouth to clarify, you handed over the only thing that ever made you dangerous. Your silence? The masses worship transparency because transparency is how they keep score on you. They cannot control what they cannot decode. And the moment you let them decode you, you stopped being a man and became a file in their mental cabinet. Drop the illusion now. Being understood is not connection. It is surveillance with a friendlier face. Notice the pattern. Someone raises an eyebrow at your decision, and your stomach tightens. A coworker asks why you left early, and suddenly you are rehearsing a paragraph in your head. A relative questions your career, and you feel that ancient itch to defend, to detail, to prove. That itch is the wound. That itch is the slave reflex hardwired by years of seeking permission from people who never paid your bills. Every explanation you offer is a coin dropped into their machine. They pull the lever, you perform. And the worst part is, you call this maturity. You call it being open. You call it healthy communication. It is none of those things. It is a quiet confession that you do not believe your own decisions can stand without an audience clapping. The masses smell that hesitation like blood in water. They feed on it. They circle. They ask one more question, then one more, until you have laid your entire interior on a paper plate and handed it to people who will eat it cold and forget your name by Tuesday. You walked into the trap, and you tipped the trapper on your way out. Now lock on to this. The one who speaks least owns the room. Not the loudest, not the cleverest, not the most credentialed. The one who withholds. Power is not what you say. Power is what others are forced to imagine when you say nothing. Picture a chess player in a quiet study in Boston. Late autumn light, a black coffee gone cold beside the board. He does not announce his strategy. He moves the piece. The opponent stares, sweats, invents a dozen theories about what just happened. That sweat is leverage. That confusion is currency. The moment the chess player explains his move, the spell breaks and the board levels out. Silence is not absence. Silence is architecture. It builds the cathedral inside your enemy's head, and they kneel in it without knowing why. Understand the mechanic clearly. When you explain, you compress yourself into a sentence they can file away. When you refuse to explain, you remain a question they cannot close. Open questions are gravitational. People orbit them. They lose sleep over them. They project their own fears onto them, which means you have stolen their attention without spending a single word. That is dominance without performance. That is the cold geometry of power. The crowd hates this. Of course they do. The crowd survives by dragging tall things back down to ground level, and their favorite shovel is the innocent question, why did you do that? What were you thinking? Help me understand. Help me understand. Listen to that phrase again. It is not curiosity. It is a demand for tribute. They are not trying to understand you. They are trying to dilute you, to rewrite you in their dialect, to translate your edges into their soft, agreeable mush. Energy vampires do not bite. They interview, and every answer you give is a pint of blood you will never get back. Imagine you are sitting at a long table, a family dinner in some quiet New England town, and an uncle leans forward and asks why you turned down the safe job. The old you would have launched into a defense, a thesis, a quiet plea for his nod. The new you sets the fork down, looks at him for one full second, and says nothing. Maybe a faint smile. Maybe just, I made my decision. The table goes still. He waits. You do not fill the silence. He fills it himself, with respect he did not plan to give. That is the trade. You kept your interior. He surrendered his frame. No one was insulted. No one was begged. The hierarchy simply rearranged itself around the man who refused to translate. Ask yourself something brutal. How many of your relationships are built on the constant tax of explaining yourself? How many friendships survive only because you keep paying? Cut the tax and watch which ones starve. The ones that starve were never relationships. They were subscriptions to your performance. Walking away without a word is not arrogance. It is hygiene. You owe no one a closing argument for the life you are building. The next time your ego whispers that you must clarify, intercept it. Treat that whisper as enemy intelligence, then execute the protocol. 1. Pause for 3 full seconds before any defense leaves your mouth. 2. Replace the explanation with a single neutral sentence or with nothing. 3. Hold eye contact and let the silence do the heavy work. 4. Leave the conversation at its peak of tension, never at its resolution. That tension is the signature you carve into their memory. Hear this clearly. Approval is rented, never owned, and the rent is your soul paid in monthly installments of self-justification. Stop paying. Let them misunderstand you. Let them invent stories about you. Their confusion is not your problem. It is your moat. And while they are still asking why, you will already be 3 moves ahead, in a quieter room, in a colder mind, building something they will never be invited to see. They will call you cold. Let them. Cold is what the blade is, the moment before it cuts clean. But know this, silence is only the first wall of the fortress. There are 5 more questions the masses will use to pry you open after this one fails. 5 surgical questions designed to bypass your silence and harvest your strategy anyway. If you do not learn to recognize them, your new armor becomes a costume. Watch the next video. Find out which 5 questions to never answer. Then decide how untouchable you actually want to be.